Apple subscription service, basically a lower tier of Apple Music through Siri that's $5 a month. There's some new HomePod mini colors, and also there's a new third generation AirPods. So there's a new design that basically looks just like AirPods Pro, but without the silicon tips and the noise cancellation. And they have a new wider case with MagSafe wireless charging and a longer battery life, and they're $179. Definitely get subscribed to stay tuned for that full review when I get those in my hands here. But then we got right to the good stuff, right into the new Apple Silicon M1 Pro and M1 Max. Kind of cheesy names at first, but they do make sense. So this is the upgrade. This is Apple Silicon unleashed, you might say. So the M1 Pro chip has a 10-core CPU, 8 high performance with 2 high efficiency, and a 16-core GPU with up to 32 gigs of RAM, which doesn't sound like a lot, but keep in mind, this is just the first tier Pro chip. Same shared memory architecture, still built on the 5nm process, but it's basically, simply, a physically scaled up M1 chip, as expected. And they're saying it will deliver 70% faster CPU performance and 100% faster GPU performance over the M1. The already really good M1, which was a head and shoulders over the Intel chips that came before it, which is pretty crazy. But then now there's also M1 Max, which again scaled up even further, and it's mostly in the GPU department, so it's a bigger system on a chip. Look at the size of that chip. And this time it's the same 10-core CPU, but up to 32 cores of GPU and up to 64 gigs of shared memory. So now you have 4 times the M1's graphic. And at least this time, I think they heard a lot of talk about those old graphs. This time they actually name drop the exact PC laptop they're comparing it to every time. But yeah, this is still a tough graph to draw any real world conclusions from. Basically, I think what we're all gathering here is this is a really powerful, really efficient set of chips at the high end, significantly faster than any of the fastest Intel MacBook Pros, and with potential to still have really laptops. Number 1, brought back MagSafe, a magnetic, pin-based, reversible charging connector on the side of the laptop. Safe, beloved, 67 or 96 watts on the 14-inch, depending on if you have the baseline or the 10-core, and 140 watts on the 16-inch for faster charging. You can still charge via USB-C if you want to, though. Then they also got rid of the touch bar and put back real function keys at the top of the laptop. Full-size buttons, too. And there's a fingerprint Touch ID sensor on the top right-hand corner you can see there as well. And the whole keyboard is now in this black keyboard well, which is it's subtle, but it's a really nice touch. The HDMI port, number 1, which is great to see. Then they also dropped in 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports, and then they brought back the SD card slot. Why they ever got rid of it, I'll never know, but hell yes, it's back. And then the headphone jack, which is still here, also now supports higher impedance headphones, which will be really interesting to test with some more Pro. Have 120 Hertz ProMotion Liquid Retina XDR display, so up to 1600 nits of peak brightness. Ignore that notch up there. So these are always fascinating design decisions from Apple. The laptop does not have Face ID. Like, you saw the fingerprint reader on the power button. There's your Touch ID right there. That's it for your biometric authentication. I would have been totally down if they did put in Face ID for just an extra layer of security. It would have been more secure than Windows Hello, which just uses a webcam. But that's all that's up here, just a webcam. It is a 1080p webcam, actually. It's also about time. But yeah, I'm not sure why the notch is so big. I don't know why it's this wide. Now, I love the extra screen real estate you're getting. They thinned up all the bezels, and it's awesome that it's a 16:10 display underneath this notch. And the extra screen real estate up top here is basically where the menu bar can permanently live and not overlap your content. But I don't know, I just don't know why the notch has to give us Pixel 3 XL vibes. It is pretty battery life, 17 hours of video playback on the 14 and 21 hours on the 16, which is now the longest battery life ever in any Apple laptop. And the fast charging with MagSafe is going to give you up to half battery in half an hour. It's not. It seemed like every time Apple showed any sort of numbers or comparisons in this keynote with especially M1 Pro and M1 Max, look pretty good. I mean, M1 Pro should be awesome. M1 Max should be even more awesome. And with all the optimizations around macOS and ProMotion, it should be a pleasure also to use in just regular use. If you're not, it's starting at $19.99 for the 14-inch and starting at $24.99 for the 16. That doesn't surprise me at all. We knew it was coming. But note that the baseline 14 is also a cut down 8-core CPU and 14-core GPU, so you have to spend $500 more for 2 more CPU cores and
we've created something wild. With a fire in its belly. This thing draws everything in, moving silently, night and day, into the deepest blacks and brightest lights. Its eye, razor sharp. Its sound, deafening. Pretty. Dangerous. So why would anyone give this beast more power? You'd have to be reckless. What have we done? And more importantly, what will you do?